So I've been thinking a lot about the word debt in in the sense that people use the word debt with technical debt, organizational debt, leadership debt, UX debt. And I use that word a lot. I use those phrases a lot. But I've been thinking about what's the real problem here? What's the challenge? And why am I having a problem with using the word debt? And I think it's because there is often a ton of conflict when it comes to the interpretation of debt inside an organization. It's We use it as this a way to make the idea of cutting corners more tangible. Oh, we're accruing debt, or we're going to pay off that debt later, or we're going to do this later. But very rarely do different people in the organization have a shared understanding about what you're talking about. So, my reckless growth is another person's hitting our goals, right? Or your cutting corners is my acceptable risk. So I think what the discussion of debt obscures is that typically it's in the context of someone waving their hands and saying, look, we're cutting corners. Eventually it's going to come back to bite us in the ass. And the reality is if the other people in the organization actually believed that, so if they believed A, it's going to come back and bite us in the ass, or B, there's not something you're doing right now that's far outweighing those potential risks. If you had shared understanding about that, the discussion would be very different. So what concerns me about the use of the word debt, even in the sense of how I use it, is that it obscures the fact that the team often lacks shared understanding or shared goals. So you could take a startup example. The founders have a particular goal. If you're an early employee at that startup, you might have different goals. You might have seen this as an opportunity to start something new or, get it right this time. Meanwhile, the founder might be thinking, we got to exit this thing. At all costs, we've got to do this. So I think that the word debt gives a false sense of understanding when the real problem is, can you as an organization build kind of a common set of values or principles or objectives? And whenever I see the word debt, there's this impression that you can do something about it. And frankly, in situations where debt has had a long time to accumulate, it's often because there have been systemic issues that allowed it to accumulate. And those issues can't just simply be worked down. It might be toxic individuals. It might be the nature of your business or how fast you had to grow just to keep the lights on. So when we use the word debt, we're ascribing a kind of like a false sense of agency to it, that we can do something about it. And in my experience, that's not the case. You have to dig into the deeper questions there. And, simply saying, well, we're accumulating a lot of blankety debt. We're going to pay it off. Most debt doesn't get paid off in a nice linear fashion. Literally, the company gets disrupted. Something happens. You run out of money. The person leaves. The very fact that the debt was allowed to accumulate in the first place suggests that there was no counteracting tension against that. So I have been in situations where, the engineering team said, hold on, putting on the brakes here. We've got to work this down. But I don't think that was some calculated experiment, a calculated two sets of lines on the wall that one line finally got to a certain point. That was basically sort of tidal shift in the organization. It didn't happen in some kind of rational way. So anyway, that's what I was getting at. That's what I've been thinking about. Thanks.